If you're a fan of basketball, besides March Madness or the NBA playoffs, the trade deadline is the most exciting time of year. It's the time of year when some teams realize they need to move in a different direction and blow it up. Other teams might realize they need to make a big trade to make a deep playoff push. We saw this with the Lakers at the 2023 deadline, when they traded away Westbrook to revamp their roster and finished the season very strong. However, very few times do we see a trade deadline deal lead to a championship, and that's the topic of this video. How's it going, folks? My name's Andy, and here are 6 different times a team acquired a player at the trade deadline who became a major piece in helping them win the title. But before we continue with this video, I want to talk about my sponsor, Blue Chew. Blue Chew is a men's health platform offering affordable, chewable versions of these ingredients. For those who don't know, these 3 ingredients help men achieve stronger, harder, bone-shaking erections to elevate your sex life. Because we all know, if you're an Andy Hoops viewer, you're definitely having a lot of sex. These chewable tablets have the same active ingredients you'll find in Viagra, Levitra, or Cialis, but for a fraction of the cost. Blue Chew helps combat all forms of ED and also helps reduce performance anxiety, something that a lot of young men struggle with. Whatever it is, Blue Chew will support you. By subscribing, you'll get a free online consultation, 24/7 medical support, a prescription for these chewables if you're approved, and discreet delivery straight to your doorstep every month. If you're interested, check out my link in the description below to get started. Number 6. PJ Tucker. When the Milwaukee Bucks won the championship in 2021, it was kind of surprising, honestly. In the previous 2 years, they couldn't get over the hump, and then this time they faced stiff competition, getting pushed to 7 games by the Brooklyn Nets. Heck, if Durant's feet were just a tad bit smaller, the Nets would have beaten them. Then in the finals, they surprisingly won 4 straight games after going down 2-0. However, what separated this Bucks team from the previous iterations was the addition of PJ Tucker. At the 2021 trade deadline, in a move that flew under the radar, the Bucks made a quiet deal with the Houston Rockets to acquire Tucker. At the time, Tucker was getting older. He was nearly 36 years old, his three-point shot was regressing, and his last few years on the Rockets were uneventful. People wondered, did he still have anything left in the tank? Turns out, he sure as hell did. Despite not playing much when he first arrived, Tucker averaged nearly 30 minutes a game in the playoffs, the 4th most minutes on this entire team. He was in the starting lineup for 19 of their 23 playoff games. Most importantly, he became their best individual defender, holding opponents to just 43.3% from the field, the lowest mark on this team out of anyone who defends at least 5 shots a game. It's even more impressive when you look at the kind of players he had to guard: Jimmy Butler, Kevin Durant, Devin Booker. You can't ask any more than that from a role player who got here just a few months before the playoffs began. Aside from his defensive prowess, it was Tucker's toughness that added a much-needed boost to this team. The Bucks, in the previous years, were seen as being kinda soft. While they were a great defensive team, they didn't have that rugged, brutish mentality that make other teams fear them. He added a new dimension to the Bucks' defense, especially at the wings, which was their weakest area on defense. A ton of wing players in the past went off against them. From Kawhi to Jimmy Buckets, they struggled defending bigger wing players, and Tucker immediately fixed that. Don't let the box score fool you. Even though he only averaged 4 points a game on 30 minutes a game, he was crucial in their run to the championship. Unfortunately, Tucker left after this season, and ever since then, the Bucks have been missing that toughness on the wings. They still haven't found his replacement. Number 5. Aaron Gordon. In this case, the Nuggets did not win the championship immediately after getting Gordon. It took 2 years for them to get healthy, but when they did, the results were extraordinary. I can't think of a better player to complement Nikola Jokic. In the 2021 trade deadline, the Orlando Magic blew up their team, trading away their entire core to 3 different teams. Back in Orlando, he was a high-usage player who had the ball a lot in his hands. The Magic asked him to do way too much. They tried to make Gordon their primary playmaker. They wanted to turn him into a prototypical wing player. who took a lot of jumpers, a lot of fadeaways, basically more than what he was capable of. These were not his strengths, and it took years for the Magic to realize this. By the time they did, it was too late. It's not entirely the Magic's fault, though. I mean, they just never had the playmaking or passing to feed Gordon, to allow him to play off the ball and flourish. In Denver, however, a team that already has elite playmakers, Gordon feels comfortable playing to his strengths. Dunking, abusing smaller guys in the paint, playing closer to the basket, he excels in all of that, and now he's doing it much more than ever. This is reflected in his scoring numbers. Since coming to Denver, Gordon has had his most efficient seasons ever. Furthermore, because he can conserve energy on offense now, Gordon has made a name for himself as one of the NBA's best defenders. The thing is, he's never been a bad defender. He's always been gifted with all the physical tools, the speed, the lateral quickness, and athleticism. But he's never gotten the recognition before, cause he played for the Magic and nobody cared about them. On the Nuggets, not only was he the perfect fit on offense, but he filled a major hole on defense that this team was desperately missing. When Jokic and Gordon are on the floor together, the Nuggets have a ludicrous offensive rating of 123.3. That would be first in the entire NBA, even ahead of the Boston Celtics, who currently have the highest offensive rating of all time. I'd go as far as to say this trade deadline deal to acquire Gordon was the most important trade the Nuggets made in the history of their franchise. Am I being too brash? I don't think so. I truly think he's that important. Number 4, Marc Gasol. The Raptors' 2018-19 season was brilliant, and it was headlined by the arrival of Kawhi Leonard over the summer. All eyes were on him. With LeBron moving west and the acquisition of Leonard, the Raptors became a legitimate threat to win the title. However, lost in all the headlines was a critical deal at the trade deadline that truly pushed them into championship status: the Marc Gasol trade. Before this deal, the Raptors were running Serge Ibaka as the starting center, as Jonas Valanciunas saw his minutes drop, and his role became diminished. Keep in mind, they were still winning a ton of games, and they could have stood pat at the deadline and done nothing. In fact, their record was 40-16 when they traded for Marc Gasol. However, Masai Ujiri has always been one of the brightest minds in basketball, and he knew what they were missing. They needed a bigger body at center in preparation for the playoffs, a guy with experience to take on all the bigger guys in the conference, in particular Embiid and Giannis. That's why he pulled the trigger on this trade, and it paid off big time. To show you how much of an impact Gasol had, in the playoffs, every single player he guarded struggled so much against him. In the first round against the Magic, Gasol held Nikola Vucevic to a horrendous 11 points a game on a putrid 36% shooting. Vucevic was an all-star that year, averaging 21 and 12, yet he couldn't do anything against Gasol. In the second round, Joel Embiid was held to just 17 points a game on 37% shooting. Considering how this series was decided by a single shot, if the Raptors did not acquire Gasol, they'd probably get knocked out by the Sixers. I mean, I can't imagine Valanciunas holding Embiid to 17 points a game on 37%. Historically, Embiid has always struggled against Gasol. In 9 career regular season games, Embiid only averages 12 points a game on 35%. So this series wasn't a one-time ordeal. Gasol simply has his number and knows how to defend him inside and out. Against the Bucks in the conference finals, while Gasol wasn't the primary defender on Giannis, he still contested him at the basket many times. And Giannis had a hard time scoring at the rim when Gasol was lurking. His numbers dropped off significantly compared to the regular season. Perhaps it was Gasol's leadership and communication on defense that allowed the Raptors to play such great team defense throughout the entire playoffs. And offensively, he wasn't asked to do a whole lot, but those passing skills never go away. You know, I have mixed emotions about the Raptors winning the title. On one hand, it was great to see this franchise win their first ever title, but also sad, cause Kawhi left after one season. Which makes me wonder what could have been. What if he had stayed? Could they have won back-to-back? Or even three-peated? Considering Kawhi's history with injuries, probably not. But it's still something to think about. Number 3. Rasheed Wallace. It's hard to say a single trade was the tipping point in turning the Pistons into a contender. It was a culmination of various decisions that built this team, a team that reached 6 consecutive Eastern Conference Finals, 2 Finals appearances, and 1 championship. At the 2004 trade deadline, the Pistons were ready to make a push for the title. Their weakest position by far was at power forward, so they shopped around a little bit to try and find a player who could fit into their system and culture. That's when Rasheed Wallace came into the picture.
Well, there you see it, Rasheed Wallace is off the bench and about to check in the Motor City.
When's the last time Rasheed Wallace had a standing ovation from 20,000 people? He's gotta love this, yeah.
He was a seasoned veteran. He made the playoffs in 7 consecutive years with the Portland Trail Blazers. His toughness, his persona, his ability to stretch the floor as a power forward made him a very enticing piece. When he arrived, Sheed fit into this team seamlessly and filled in the void at a crucial position. While most of the great power forwards in the NBA were in the West, just by having Rasheed Wallace provided the Pistons a way to deal with those guys. Even if he wasn't the same player he was back in Portland, very few power forwards in the NBA came close to both his scoring prowess and his defensive instincts. Plus, when Ben Wallace needed a breather, Sheed could rotate and guard centers in a pinch. There's one interesting scenario to think about though. We all know the Pistons won the title in the same season they acquired Sheed. But before the season even started, they also had the number 2 pick of the 2003 NBA draft, a draft that would go down to be one of the greatest of all time. The Pistons were very clear with their intentions to draft a big man, so they took Darko Milicic, a bust. But if they had drafted anybody else, Melo, Wade, or specifically Bosch, to fill in their void at power forward, they likely would not make this deal for Rasheed. This leads to the question, do the Pistons still win the 2004 title with a rookie Chris Bosch instead of the more experienced Rasheed Wallace? In the long run, having Bosch would be better for sure. Perhaps he could have extended their window for a couple more years. Number 2. Clyde Drexler. The year before the Rockets made this trade deadline deal for Clyde Drexler, they already won the championship, defeating the Knicks in a hard-fought 7-game series. They already had the capability to repeat and win again, so why did they feel the need to make a major deal for Drexler? Well, the 1994-95 season was not kind to the Rockets. They had so many highs and lows, and they performed very poorly against other Western Conference teams. In the regular season, they didn't win a single game against the Seattle Supersonics, going 0-4. They also went 1-3 against San Antonio. These two teams were their biggest rivals in the West. Naturally, this made the Rockets front office concerned. They felt compelled to scramble and try to find any sort of deal to make them better. And so they pulled the trigger on this blockbuster trade. Clyde Drexler, an 8-time All-Star with the Portland Trail Blazers and the second best shooting guard of his era. This was perfect. It was a prime opportunity for the Rockets to shake it up and see how it goes. On paper, it might not seem like they gave up much to get him, but Otis Thorpe was their starting power forward. It also led to some disgruntled voices in the locker room. The players loved Otis, and they felt like the team made this trade for no reason, because the players were confident in running it back to win again. The most vocal was none other than Vernon Maxwell, who lost his starting spot to Clyde Drexler. He was so upset that he quit on the team in the middle of the playoffs, and soon he got waived. While the Drexler trade was initially met with mixed opinions, the results speak for themselves. Now with a legit secondary star alongside Hakeem Olajuwon, the Rockets made a historic run to the NBA title. Even to this day, no other team has won the championship with a seed as low as the 6th seed. And finally, at number 1, Pau Gasol. At the 2008 deadline, the Lakers acquired Pau Gasol in one of their greatest trades ever, and almost immediately they went from struggling to get out of the first round with just Kobe to a legit contender once again. I mean, pretty much anything was an upgrade over Kwame Brown. But to get a legit all-star, one of the best bigs in the league, it was robbery. At least in that deal, the Grizzlies got his brother Marc in return too. At least that was good. Pau had the best years of his career in LA. This deal marked a monumental moment in Lakers history. It directly led to their return to dominance. They were back on top of the world. 3 straight finals appearances and 2 championships. Pau's arrival to LA had a heavy hand in elevating Kobe's own legacy. Prior to this, Kobe had 3 titles, but no finals MVPs and no regular season MVPs either. But with Pau, he turned out to be the perfect sidekick for Kobe. From a legacy standpoint, with 2 more championships, 2 finals MVPs, and his first regular season MVP, Kobe catapulted himself into the ranks of the all-time greats. And soon, they quickly became lifelong friends. Those were 6 of the greatest trade deadline deals in NBA history. Thank you everyone so much for watching. I hope y'all enjoyed the video, and of course, as always, I'll see you next time. Peace.